Maybe it's 20.
I'm gonna go ahead and record.
In this place.
You're ready to go? Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the March Neighborhood Leadership Alliance meeting. So happy to see so many people in person. It's great to see everyone. I don't think I've been in an in-person meeting in at least a couple of years. So this is kind of rare and feels good.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 neighborhood associations represented online. Right off the bat, I'd like to go through and call take roll. So that's what we'll do. Let's see, from Aubrey Butte, we have Chris Pearson, he's online. Okay. Southwest Bend, we have Elizabeth Rhodes, she's here. Hi. Mountain View, John Bennett.
Here.
Great. And then here present, we've got Gina Franzosa from River West, Shannon Mara from Summit West, Chris Fries from Old Bend, Jim Christo from Southeast Bend. I'm Lisa Mushel from Century West.
We've also got Summer and Rob online as well.
Great, thank you. Okay. So with that, let's move into approving the last month's meeting minutes. Any changes, corrections, any comments? And I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Terrific. In terms of discussion, I previously have asked that we add in the neighborhood association name next to people's names. That way, on our minutes, we can actually see which neighborhood associations are represented. And if it's not too much trouble to do that, it sure would be wonderful.
Yeah, instead of just having them on the rep.
Exactly. And so it's almost like you would just have a grid of all of the members and then we would just check off who's here. That would work.
May I ask a question? Is it, and this is purely selfish, I'll say full disclosure, but I wonder if we could entertain a change to the agenda. I can only stay for an hour tonight. And I,
Yeah, Eugene, because I got to leave early too.
oh, I really wanted to
we're
hear
bumping
from
it up.
Christian
Yes.
before, if we could swap items number 4 and 5.
Not a problem. I was planning to talk about that just after we finished all of this.
Okay,
we've
thank you.
got,
Sorry.
Chris coming up next, but we do have a little bit of a scheduling thing for Mayor Keebler, and we knew about your issue as well. So we'll adjust some things here shortly. With the agenda, did we do a vote? All in favor?
Oh,
We
sorry.
were all good? Okay.
Oh, no, we should do it.
We
Lisa.
should.
Should do one.
Yeah, great. We do have one public comment. And to your point, so we're going to do public comments first, and then we're going to shift the agenda and have Chris present. So,
Real quick though, let's do an actual vote for those minutes.
okay. Did we do- I
So
thought
we would
did.
say all in favor.
All in favor,
Aye.
everybody? Great.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
And then we'll move into public comments. Is that right? And we have with us David Green, and you live here in Bend, and the topic is active transportation.
Right.
So,
Yes, thanks. Yeah, so I'm David Green. I'm with Bend Bikes, which is an advocacy group for people who bike, walk, and roll in Bend. And why we think this is important is for people's personal health. It's said that our obesity crisis is partly due to the loss of the useful walk or the useful bike. So people are a lot less active. Many people, including those in Bend, can't drive or don't own a car. And so that really limits their ability to get around in town. So it's really important that we start giving people a better choice about how to get around in town than just driving. The cost to the city of our current transportation system is really, really high. Every square foot of pavement that we put down is expensive. We have to maintain it forever. The city is millions of dollars behind in deferred maintenance, and we think that we need to have a change in the way we manage transportation in town. If we have more people biking, more people walking, and fewer cars on the road, we'll have a calmer, more livable city. And we think that's a really important part of life in an urban environment. And finally, the city has really strong goals for climate change, and we're not going to get there unless we promote active transportation, unless we can reduce the amount of people driving and give people a choice to walk and bike more regularly. So we have sort of a twofold agenda. One is to encourage people to bike and walk, and the other is to give people a choice to bike and walk. Right now, the only real viable transportation method in town is to drive, and people drive because of that. So we want to give people a choice, give people a safe, convenient, direct way to get around in town. That may be more important for kids than anybody else. It's shown that kids develop spatial reasoning a whole lot better if they're walking or driving than if they're riding around in the back of a car, and that they develop those skills of taking care of themselves and getting around a whole lot better if they're able to do that themselves. So in closing, we Bend Bikes would really like to engage with you as neighborhood associations and or as the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance. We've talked to several of the neighborhood alliances at their meetings. We worked really closely with the Mountain View Neighborhood Alliance on the Purcell extension project, and we worked with the Neighborhood Alliance and the city and came up with a very much better plan than was originally proposed. So we think that's a really constructive way to work together and improve city projects. Some of the neighborhood associations are developing their own transportation plans. We'd love to help with those. We see slow down, you're in our neighborhood signs all over town. Everybody has those out. And we think that's a really big symptom of the way our current transportation system works. And we'd like to work to change that. The Neighborhood Street Safety Program, which you're going to hear about in a few minutes, is got a lot of potential. It can work on small issues that are really bothering people in the neighborhoods. The thing I'm concerned about with that program in particular is that if you look at the submissions from the neighborhood associations, over 50% of them are, we want cars to slow down on these streets. And so far, we're not seeing any of the projects selected in the Neighborhood Street Safety Program that directly address those issues. They're addressing a lot of other things which are really important, but we think that there are other things that they can do. So if your neighborhood association would like us to come talk, we would love to do that. We would love to hear your concerns in the neighborhood. We'd love to hear what people are thinking about transportation issues in town. And you can get a hold of Bend Bikes in general at info@bendbikes.org, or you can get a hold of me directly at davidg@bendbikes.org. So thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the Neighborhood Street Safety Program too.
Thank
Thanks.
you, David. Appreciate that.
I'm gonna
Do we
check
have
online.
any other comments online? Anyone that wants to talk?
So if you're listening in online, now's the opportunity to raise your hand. You should have a button in the bottom of your screen that you can raise and lower your hand. So you can do that now. If you're calling in from a phone, the key is *9. Seeing none.
Is there a way to turn the, no,
Not really, no, I mean.
Turn it down.
Looks like there's a seat next to Lisa if you guys want to shift over,
Oh, yeah.
but they have their Teams meeting going in there. I know.
gotcha,
It's
it
not
sounds
great.
like online.
It's not great sound.
So
Yeah,
even in City Hall, right?
yeah. That's why we need a new city hall. Yes.
One of the reasons.
Okay, we'll just continue moving along. So we are adjusting the agenda, and rather than have NLA representative reports, item number 4, we're going to move to item number 5. And we have with us today Christian Williams, who's an engineering associate with City of Bend. The NLA, as most of you know, the NLA was heavily involved in the development of the first round of the NSSP. pretty extensively. We were receiving quarterly updates on the progress when it was with the streets, but now it's in the hands of Christian and the engineering and infrastructure planning department. So we wanted to invite him today to give us an update since the initial projects are nearing completion and GO bond funding will be used for the next round, which might require a different process than what was used the first time. So Christian, take it away.
Awesome.
You can come up here or you can go down there with that microphone.
Does it
whichever
plug my computer in?
you- Up you. Plug in right here.
Oh, do you mean for your presentation, Christian?
Yeah,
Oh, I think you have to get on the Zoom.
I have to get on the Zoom.
Did we give him a Zoom invite?
No.
Yeah, I think I.
Hold please for technical arrangements.
Participant, if I-
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe that's my bad.
No, probably not.
Find it.
We're all over the place. I'll send it to you now. You might beat me.
I'm not sure I have Zoom downloaded on my computer.
Oh, okay. Here, I can share mine.
Can I send you?
Yes,
the
please.
updated one?
Thanks.
Perfect. Sorry about this.
Move the meeting. Should we talk about meeting while they're doing that? Meeting time and dates? We could.
I'm
skip-
sorry.
We could skip to number 7 while they're doing this and save a couple minutes.
The outstanding items,
here.
meeting date and time? Sure. So we have, are you ready to go now? No, not quite
yet.
Okay, so the items on the table, we have a change to our meeting time and date. And today is the first time that we've adjusted to a 4:30 start. So Michaela, you took a poll, I believe, a doodle
Yeah.
poll. Did you have a pretty good response?
Yeah, there was 8 folks that said that this was the best, and then we didn't hear from several. So that's 4:30 to 6:30 is what it's at right now. I think one thing Morgan has proposed is trying to get down to an hour and a half if possible, but not something we've talked about as a chair, but so more to come, I guess, on that. And for now, we're going to start meeting at 4:30 and consider that our meeting time for the next several meetings.
Any other discussion about that? Everyone's okay with that? Terrific. And how about committee openings?
Committee open, there's several committees that have turnover on them right now. So we're all looking for some folks to fill slots. I know with the NLA, we have Boyd Acres position open, and then we also have Southern Crossings position open. And so I'm going to be doing a push in the spring to make sure that the NLA is included in that so we can get those spots filled. But also just a reminder to all of you, because I'm sure that we know people that live outside of our neighborhoods. If you know anybody in those areas that might be a good fit, they could really use the help recruiting. So, we did do a recruitment in the fall and only got a couple of folks out of that.
Any questions? With that, looks like we're ready to go.
Okay, I'm gonna just scoot over one chair. If that's just to speaking to the mic. Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm just gonna give my little update on the neighborhood street safety program. Sort of filling you all in on what we've done and a little bit of what we're going to be doing. And yeah, it should be a lot of information. I'm Christian Williams. I'm an engineering associate over in EIPD, Engineering Infrastructure Planning Department. I've worked in the department for about 1.5 years now, with my sole focus being the NSSP. I've overseen all of 2022, currently overseeing 2023. That's out to bid at this moment, and we're going to start design on 2024 here shortly as well. So a little bit of project background, if you want to go to the next slide, Michaela. So the NSSP was started in 2019 by the Transportation Mobility Department. They did a call for projects and received more than 360 projects, which was then pared down to 25 projects by the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, as well as neighborhood associations. And in 2020, it was taken under the general obligation bond, which is where I come in. We have about $8 million over the course of 10 years. We've spent about a quarter of that at this point. By the end of this, we anticipate to have spent over half, just over half. To date, we have 11 of the 25 projects completed. And by the end of the year, we will have 17 of the 25 projects done. So next slide. If you go to council on April 19th and you see that slide again, you know, I'm reusing. So 2019 to 2022. So this is just a breakdown of what we've done by, we've broken them down into design years and construction years. But generally, when I talk about them, I'm going to talk about them as 2020, 2021, 2022. And that's just the shorthand that I've been using. So in 2020, we did 3 projects, number 1, 3, and 8, which I have a picture here of the safe crossing to Harmon Park. So in 2020, we did safe crossing to Ponderosa Park, traffic calming along Northeast 12th Street, and safe access to Harmon Park as well. 2021 was the safe crossing to Mountain View, Holly Grape Crosswalk, Reed Lane crossing at Peril Road, and the Sizemore traffic calming. And then last year, 2022, the most recent round, we did the safe crossing Mount Washington Drive, safe route to Amity Creek, which is just over here on Wall in Idaho. If you drive by, there's a nice new little curb extension. Sidewalk infill along Brosser House Road, which also included 2 traffic islands. And then we did some enhanced crosswalks and street lighting up on Aubrey at the intersection of Aubrey Greyhawk. If you want to go to the next slide. This is just a breakdown of to date, how many neighborhood associations have how many projects completed. So we have 2 neighborhood associations where 2 projects are done. Old Bend and Old Farm, as of this year, have their neighborhood or their NSSP projects 100% completed. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 neighborhood associations with 1 project complete, and then 5 with 0. And a nice little visual depiction of that as well. What we will be doing, or what we are doing right now, so that was what we have done and what we are doing. If you want to skip ahead 2 slides, Michaela. 2022 through 2024. So in 2022, we started design for the projects that will be built this year. We're going to City Council on April 19th with a construction contract to build these 6 projects. So a couple mostly enhanced crossings, sidewalk, infill. There should be some pretty good safety enhancements at these locations. And also we are once again going to council on April 19th to start a design contract with a design firm here locally to build the last 8 projects. If you want to skip ahead, this slide looks remarkably similar to the last one, but it's just going to show by the end of the year what will be done. And as you can see, we will only have 2 neighborhood associations with no projects complete in them, down from 9 before, 11 before. Yeah, so we're making progress. We're pretty close to the end of things here. And then what we will do, next slide, next 2 slides. Awesome. So in summer 2024, we're going to be building the last 8 projects. These are what the projects have been named. Boyd Acres S-Curves, Discovery Trail Safe Crossing, traffic calming at Providence Park, Larkwood Drive Sidewalk Infill, Deschutes River Trail Crossing, Chamberlain Street, Archie Briggs, and Century. They are, yeah, I mean, we're really looking forward to, there's some fairly large projects. The largest projects we have are included in these. Both Boyd Acres and Archie Briggs together are pretty close to $1 million. which is the total construction package of all the projects this year. So some large projects coming up. And then that will take us to the end of the first 25 projects, which is an achievement. We did it. And then 2025 and beyond. So we are going to be building more projects. We have $8 million. We will have spent just over half of it at the end of the verse 25. What that means is, this is sort of where it gets a little bit different than the first round. We haven't determined what method we are using to pick projects yet.
Hold on.
Yeah, well, there'll be time for questions at the end.
Okay.
We have the original list of 360 plus projects. So, we're weighing, do we use those? We have new needs that have arisen in the last 5 years. Do we resolicit projects? So we're going to get some direction internally on how we want to handle that. And then you'll hear from me again. And that is, that's pretty much it. Now, if you want to move on, we'll have time for questions.
Sure. Your turn.
I was back on the ones that are planned for this next year.
2023 or
Archie
2024?
Briggs
Yes.
And the other S curves. What are you doing there?
We're installing sidewalk. There's just a lot of
You're putting in
sidewalk that needs to be installed.
Okay.
About each one of them has about
That
2,000
remaining
feet.
to be 23, 24.
Yeah. If you want to go up
So
2
what
slides, I
more?
think.
Sure. Not happening.
Okay, so sidewalk.
Or go towards the end, 4 slides. There we go.
So most of that is, other than crossings, obviously.
Yeah, and I will say none of this has been designed at all. We sort of have inklings of what we intend to do, and we've talked to our selected consultant about it, but we haven't entered a design contract with them yet. So we don't have a lot of information, except for at those 2 locations, we want to install roughly 2,500 feet of sidewalk between the 2 of them, which is with right-of-way acquisition, grading,
Right. Okay.
all sorts
And
of stuff.
then crossings of Century Drive. Ooh, where?
Yeah, great
And
question.
what's happened?
That's the tricky one. It's definitely the hardest project that we're going to be designing this upcoming year. To answer you frankly, I don't know, but I can tell you that what we're looking at right now is a pedestrian island, rapid flashing beacons, and that is somewhere between Mammoth and East Campbell Road in that little area. Additionally, we have some leftover funding. We applied for a grant many years ago, and we just found out we didn't get it. But at the time that we applied for it, council had to match financially what we applied for. That money still exists, and we are using it to design a second crossing at Tetherow, but that probably won't be built with the NSSP projects.
There's a lot of play there, including a potential roundabout, depending on what's going on with those developers.
I believe the CIP has a roundabout eventually, but that's
At
not part of the
Tetherow?
NSSP. Yeah, that's, I can't answer to that.
There are 2 questions online.
We've got a couple of people online. Elizabeth?
Hi, thanks. My question is about the Larkwood Drive sidewalk infill. We are very excited about that. It's one of those safe walkways to school or whatever that was called, projects. And we just have one major concern as it moves forward, primarily in the design phase, that there are several homes along that stretch of Larkwood that have some really large trees that are close to the street. And we would really like to get some input from the neighbors and try to ensure that the trees can be saved when that sidewalk is going in. So Christian, would you be the one to reach out to about that?
Yeah, that's one of the projects that we haven't started design on yet. I definitely want to see those trees remain. So I mean, all I can say is I can try. I can't unfortunately promise anything, but I can certainly try to keep them.
Great. We would just really like communication with the people that live right there. And so we had already had it on our radar to reach out to you, and we will do that.
Great. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Chris Pearson?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And thanks, Christian, for the presentation. It's really interesting. I'm interested in what your thinking is about the next round, the new projects once we get beyond these 25. And the two issues I was wondering about is what the fellow just spoke about Bend Bikes and also tree preservation. Is there going to be a concerted effort to coordinate with those two interest groups in the planning of the next round of improvements?
Yeah, that's a good question. Tree preservation citywide is definitely something that we consider, especially on projects like this. We try and be as invasive as possible. Granted, as I say that, sometimes there are just places where there's just not enough space. So trees, unfortunately, do have to come out, especially for some of these retrofits. There's not always a ton of play. But that being said, something we try and stay mindful of. I mean, I think that sort of attests to the previous question as well. As for Bend Bikes, we haven't specifically started planning any of the next round of projects. So I can't really speak to what the involvement there will be. I am more in line with delivering the projects than planning the projects. I'm in more of a support role. There are other people that do more of the planning stuff that might be more inclined to be working with Bend Bikes, and I can speak to at this moment.
Christian,
So,
I'm
yes.
happy to talk about this, and Ryan's sitting behind you if you want to tap him. Ryan, why don't you come up, and I'll just say Christian's slide mentioned that this was going to go to the community building subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of council. So that'll be 3 counselors as sort of a starting place to decide what's the next process look like, and is it take the list already made? As Christian mentioned, there's some new developments, new needs. So do we need to reiterate the list? And then this is now geo bond money, and we have an oversight committee for geo bond money. So what's their involvement? What's neighborhood association involvement? I think that's all going to be part of it. And that's to be determined. At this
Yeah,
point.
exactly. Yeah, that'll be the upcoming community building subcommittee meeting happening next week. I'm Ryan Oster, by the way. I'm the engineering director for the city of Bend. So yeah, Christian's a rock star for us here, getting all this work delivered. But yeah, we are entering kind of into a new realm. The world's a lot different now, and even in terms of our standards of what we build than when it was 5-6 years ago when this was initially kicked off. So, and we only had $800,000 at the time. So now we've got millions that we have available. So yeah, it's a different conversation now. We definitely want to run this through the council subcommittee, get their input on. Because we could easily go spend all 4 million where we know there's needs, but there's obviously a benefit to asking the community. And I think the success of these projects is just shows the evidence of that. So we want to strike that balance of going back out and asking the community where they think the needs are, running it through the Transportation Bond Oversight Committee, like the mayor said. And then other interest groups, whether it be Bend Bikes or anyone like that, will all definitely have a chance to provide input as well before we finally consolidate this list and select what we can afford to do with the remaining 4 million.
Yeah. Can I just say one other quick thing? Just it does strike me that the projects that have been done so far are essentially automobile centric, and the city doesn't seem to be moving in that direction with the no parking requirement that previously passed and the strong interest in modes of transportation besides cars. So it does seem to me that that's a really important consideration going forward.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. That's exactly why we want to re-engage and start the conversation and see where we want to focus this money on and see if it's different than what it was 5 years ago.
John, looks like you've got a hand up. John Bennett.
Yeah, hi, Christian. This is John from Mountain View. My question is about Project 20, the traffic calming at Providence Park. I live pretty close to Providence Park, and I'm wondering if you have a rough idea what is going to be involved there. Is that at all going to have to do with the intersection of Providence and Loxley? Or are we talking about crosswalks like right in front of the park? Do you have a rough idea what that might entail?
Yeah, so both. We have definitely, we intend to sort of enhance the crossing at Providence Loxley. I've driven that a couple times. It's a little bit dicey going through there sometimes. And I know that's pretty much the main way a lot of the neighborhoods in there get to the Forum and other areas I know. So that intersection definitely is going to get some treatment. At the park, we're looking at just making sure that that's a safer crossing for pedestrians leaving the park. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, my one thought is, I would love to see perhaps like a 4-way stop at that Providence Loxley. Like if you're coming on down Loxley, taking a left towards Providence, that's kind of a blind turn off to your right and cars come whipping down at the last minute. So to me, that's like the most dangerous part of that area.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a couple ideas in mind right now. And one of the key things about this project is, community outreach. As we've worked on our concept drawings and gotten further and further into design, I have gone and spoken with neighborhood associations many times. And so there will be a lot of communication throughout the design process with the neighborhood association as well.
Next up, Gina and then Shanna.
I was not involved in 2019 or 2018, whenever the 360 project list was developed. But several folks on the River West board were, and I just kind of want to put a plug out that it was a very popular public engagement process. They received more comments from neighbors about that than probably anything that the association's ever done before. So I think the value of the program as it was originally conceived is still really valid. So I would encourage you to try to stay true to that as you go forward. But I recognize and personally, now kind of seeing the projects come around, to my mind, the way that I think about the NSSP projects is that they are these ways to make micro connections to our bicycle and pedestrian system in town. So it's not a key route. It's not, your entire route to school or work, but they're critical connections for folks who are just trying to get to the dog park or just trying to get to the grocery store or just trying to get to their friend's house. So I would encourage you to stay true to it. And I would also love if there was a way to kind of communicate back to the folks what those 360 projects were. Is that on the website?
Yeah, it's on our website. Yeah. So if
on the
you just Google Bend NSSP, I do this like maybe twice a week because I keep closing out of the tab. The website will pop up and there's an interactive map, and the interactive map shows every single project that was submitted, the first round of eliminations, and then the final projects that we landed on.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I will take a look at that.
Really good data in there. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I know, yeah.
All sorts of
even
weird
all
stuff.
of these projects, like I walk in my neighborhood a lot, but not in a lot of these other neighborhoods.
Yeah. And I think looking at the process doesn't necessarily mean like redo everything, because I think it's really one of the values of neighborhood groups is to get together and have this collective, like, oh yeah, we all don't like that intersection. We all don't feel safe there. Like, yes, okay, there's some collective movement by we need a crosswalk here. But that list was made and it went through NLA. We didn't have TBOC, we didn't have the bond passed by voters, right? So I think there's
As a
value.
TBOC member,
And yes.
I'm super stoked.
Yes, you're like, you get to be involved in multiple ways. So I think, and then I think there's just, as time passes, is there still community appetite for this project, or as a new project kind of risen to the top? So I think that's more what it's about. It's kind of recalibrating that way. But I think the idea of being a neighborhood program is really important. Yeah, because you get a ton of buy-in and people love to see like, hey, that's a project I suggested and here it is on the ground, right, in my neighborhood.
Right.
So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shannon?
So I have two questions, I think, maybe, yeah. And one is around this, about process. And when you were saying, you don't want that, I wasn't sure if you were saying that you want the process to be honored in this other 345 projects, or the process of seeking wide input, or is that both?
Both, I think. Yeah.
And so my follow-on question is, okay, most projects, right, didn't get funding, didn't get, and so how is the public feeling about that? Like, 345 projects didn't, and so is there, I have no idea. People are out there going, yeah, well, I did this once back in 2019 and they ignored my input and they were, you know what I mean? So
But we got 25.
how do we?
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
I think that's
Yeah.
what
I
the
understand.
sentiment is out there, and if
Yeah.
we have to engage around that,
Mhm.
I understand there was communication
Mhm.
when projects were turned down. There was a, this is why we can't do this.
Yeah, and credit, we have a couple other engineers in the city that were spearheading this at the time. And so took all 360, and as city staff, we looked at him and said, that's a great project. That's going to be $1 million. So that's a no. And so we had responses to all and justifications for each one of these, and then brought that list back to the NLA at the time. And that's how the ultimate, these 25 were ultimately selected.
Or you might have said that's already on the CIP.
Oh, yeah,
It's
or
already
it's
on the
covered
CIP,
somewhere
right?
else.
So
That's a
we're
great
already
example.
billed that, so that's
Yeah.
gonna be part of this program. So yeah, but I think that information.
And then
would
you
get that.
factor in, geographic distribution and everything else, and just, try to find that balance. So it was a fairly, as noted, it was a fairly successful program we felt in the past. So we want to continue to honor that. But we're talking in, different world today, like I said, than we were 5 years ago.
Chris, I think you had a question.
Right. I was chair of our OBNA, Old Bend, at the time that we submitted. And we were most concerned about pedestrian crossing of Colorado at the Sizemore. That, meaning I'd almost hit some person there. And so and obviously concern over the timber thing coming in with all the housing.
Yeah, the timber yard development. Yeah.
Timber yard development, and people are going to want to get from the Colorado, Arizona couplet.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we haven't seen much that looks like street calming on Sizemore yet. And a sidewalk went in, didn't do anything for people trying to walk across Colorado Avenue.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm coming across as a complainer, but
No. So this is a great example. So the timber yard development is going to get tagged with a lot of different land use conditions. And part of that is factoring in their multimodal and, how people that are coming to and from those developments are going to use the system. And then on top of that, we have in the GEO bond, we have key route money, and another bucket, we have what's called Greenways Phase 4 money. So we're literally looking at Ani East and how that Sizemore connections, we're going to be looking at that real soon here. I don't think we need to worry about that with an NSSP standpoint. I think we're going to get that covered through other mechanisms via development or GEO bond or other transportation construction funds.
have the timber people pay for it.
Yeah, they're going to have to, like any developer, they got to, pay their fair share of making sure improvements accommodate the growth.
Any other questions?
Have you guys done any preliminary look at the projects that were rejected 5 years ago to see, how many of those are, to Mayor Kubler's point, still valid projects, or like otherwise aren't being completed, with the CIP? Have you already went out the list, basically?
We're in the project planning phase right now
Okay.
for Beyond. So yeah, not quite.
but that's part of the consideration is how deep of a dive do we take into these ones that I wouldn't say they were rejected, they just weren't funded, right? So they're all still valid projects. Somebody submitted them and I'm sure there's good reasoning behind it. So yeah, it's a matter of, do we just go right back and work off of that list? Or, you know, do you as the NLA feel like it's worth going back out and asking the question again to your members to say, do you want to review what we submitted before? Here's the couple that they built. You know, are we okay with what we already had? Or is there something new that nobody was tracking at the time?
Yeah. Well, Michaela set up for us a survey tool that all the neighborhood associations can use to communicate with members and is encouraging us to use it. And
Perfect. Yeah.
yeah, it seems like a really great
Mhm.
reason to use it. So
Yeah, the entire project was a whole lot of fun to
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah.
It was incredibly challenging and so complex with all of the projects that were coming in. Elizabeth's shaking her head. She was part of that process too. So to the question that you've kind of put on, what would the NLA like to do?
Mhm.
If it were up to me, I would say we really need to go back and revisit because we've got so many new NLA members.
Yeah.
First of all, and like you say, it's kind of a different world.
Mhm.
And maybe there are some changes within our neighborhoods. And maybe there are things that we missed the
Mhm.
last time around that maybe should have a higher priority.
Mhm.
So while I don't want to go all the way and start from scratch,
Right. Yeah. We don't need to do that.
you know, I think it's great that we have all of those projects, but revisiting all of the neighborhoods to say, are these still the priorities?
Mhm.
I think that's a really important component.
It's good feedback.
Mm, To that end, I mean, I think starting not at the beginning with that list, but as Gina said, sort of having it called, oh, we've already done this as a part of something else and blah, blah, blah. So having, not going back to the exact list, right?
Mhm.
Because some of that just is irrelevant. But if it could be curated a little, and then we
Mhm.
can get input. Okay, this is,
Yeah.
would be great.
Chris, did you have another?
Well, just to support the work, we did see calming at Amity School that was very popular
Mhm.
of neighbors that didn't live in our neighborhood who brought their kids to
Oh,
the
yeah.
magnet school.
Mhm.
But we didn't see much calming on Sizemore,
Mhm.
which is what we applied for.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah,
did also
that's-
apply for work around Amity School.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great
on
point
Wall
too.
Street.
How effective are the projects that we built? Did it move the needle at all? That's a good evaluation tool.
Any other questions or
There's
comments?
one more right there.
Just going forward, I would, I hope in your project planning and all of this, there's also a communication plan that is maybe quarterly, something, just, here's where we are, here's where we're. Yeah, I don't know if it's to this group or to all the neighborhood associations or whatever, but I think people will be interested. And then you won't get pinged.
Yeah, yeah, I mean,
Project, where's that from?
yeah, I've reached out to, for this year, I've reached out to every single neighborhood association. Last year, I reached out to every single neighborhood association. We send out postcards. As we continue to move forward, I intend to continue to move out or to reach out to all the neighborhood associations where we're doing work. Just want to say this. Check your emails. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of people.
Yeah, make sure your email is correct on the city's website because that's where Christian gets it from. And if it's not correct, which ours was not, so we did not get the notice about
Mm.
Cumberland and Harmon Park, or not Harmon Park, what was it? Columbia
Park, yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think just to add to what Shannon said, I think one of the things that she means is that it would be nice to be involved before the design gets too far. So if we can provide input at that stage, that would be ideal. I mean,
Yeah.
Cumberland Crossing is super straightforward, but there are other projects where there are design choices and,
Mhm.
I have to double check, but we do have a very early in design point built in with our upcoming design contract. I think it's right around 10-30% for,
Great. Nice. Yeah, that would be awesome.
yeah, I'll have to double check. So, yeah. But that's something we do consider.
Anything else? So in terms of next steps, this looks like it's an agenda item on the community building subcommittee.
Was that 3/21 next week?
Yes, next week.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
that's
from
next
today.
week.
Mhm.
And what are the hopes of that meeting? What do you expect to get out of that?
Well, we're looking for council guidance on what the outreach and plan will be to re-engage with the public.
Okay.
So,
And as part of that, that's where the NLA perhaps is going to be part of the process again.
Right, yeah, I think it's, so, the process last time was NAs submit, and then NAs and NLA prioritize, and then it goes to staff. And I think we're looking at, since now we have TBOC and all these other things, that process probably needs to be different. So what is the involvement? How much are we going back or using the same list? I think that's gonna be what's discussed. And I think it's a public meeting. If anybody wants to submit comment at that meeting, call in or, whatever, as individuals and kind of give your input that we heard tonight. That'd be great. Especially the idea, like, let's revisit and reprioritize instead of just using the same list. I think that's going to be part of the
yeah,
discussion.
I think a key component, like the mayor said, like, we'll look at the existing list and say, we've reviewed all of these pretty detailed. So we're going to narrow it down for you a little bit ahead of time to say these ones are feasible within the budget. So here's 8 or 10 of the ones that you identified before. Go ahead and pick from those or add a new one if you want. We just kind of streamline the process a little bit so we don't start from scratch, as was noted, like we're not starting from zero.
I don't remember off the top of my head. Do you remember how many or how much money per year was allocated for NSSP through the Geo bond? Because
Yeah,
it's quite a bit more.
750,000.
yeah. We did it at 750 just to spread it out till we get to 4 million. If there's a project or a need, we will bring a proposed adjustment back to TBOC for recommendation, which would go back to council. There's nothing magic about 750. That's just,
Even
4 million.
4 million divided by 8. So boom, there you go. Yeah.
Anything else? Christian, thank you very much for the presentation. and
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
If you need me, you can always email. So, okay, bye.
Thanks.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you shouldn't say that.
More questions.
Then we are returning to our agenda and we're going backwards to NLA representative reports. While I was sitting here, I happened to notice that I didn't call on everybody because I was only looking at the screen here in council chambers and didn't notice that we do have other representatives with us, including Summer and Ross. Summer's here is with Orchard and Ross with Old Farm. So my apologies, but let the record reflect that those people are in attendance as well. And with that, Gina, I realize you probably still have some time, but I'd like to call on you first in terms of
Thank you.
leadership reports.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to report that Ryan Oster and I actually talked a couple weeks ago now about the Galveston project. So the city has had basically the redo of Galveston on the books for quite a while. And we talked about offering the neighborhood association basically supporting the city and kind of having some flexibility, maybe pushing that project out a little bit more and using that time to engage with the community and really talk about the design and maybe look at some innovative efforts to really improve bicycle and pedestrian safety on the street. So recognizing that it was a very contentious project when it was designed originally, but the landscape has also changed very much. So we're hopeful that we can, come to a really good conclusion there. So that is, and we just also continue to look for board members, just like everybody else. Lastly, I have been participating with Ben Bikes, and full disclosure, I invited David to come tonight since we had NSSP speaking. And we're hoping to schedule a ride together of Portland Avenue with our council, with River West Council Liaison, Ariel Mendez. So we'll see if he takes us up on that in kind of preparation to give some feedback on the Geo Bond project for Portland Avenue. There's $3 million and kind of an open, a little bit more flexibility of how that $3 million can be spent on Portland. So we're hoping to kind of get ahead of what the design is showing on that. So that's what I
Perfect.
have. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Gina.
much. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Shannon, are you ready?
Sure. Okay, we have I believe we have our every annual meeting, I guess it's every 18-month meeting that's scheduled and that's moving forward. We have a new board member, yay, which is good because we were down to 3. And one thing that came up about the tree code was that, I mean, people are, they clear cut and blah, 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 you know, and I think there's a need for some education out there about what the code says now, because people are, oh, they're totally in the hand, you know, it's clear cut. And I'm pretty sure that scrub is not the same, right, as a 12-inch diameter old growth tree. And so what people are upset about may not be.
My understanding, people are generally upset that the tree code appears that it's not enforceable. That's my understanding.
That it appears that it's not enforceable.
So we're going to be talking about this tomorrow night. Anyone wants to tune in, and we'll have a good staff presentation on it. We have a couple different areas in our code that deal with trees, and it hasn't been updated in quite some time. In the intervening time, a state statute was passed, and there is a need to update it to make it more clear and objective. And that's what Lisa's referencing about in a land use setting, what's enforceable and what's not. Our staff enforces our code, requires people to submit under our code, all of that good stuff. So it's not like we're not enforcing it, but it needs to be updated to be something that is more enforceable, I guess is what I would say, and to meet that state standard for clear and objective. And I think we're also going to be talking about, are there other things we want to add to the code? You know, do we want to have a goal around, you know, big trees especially, and think about that, and then balancing that with our need for housing and need for infill inside the urban growth boundary. That's going to be the discussion tomorrow night. So anyone on your list who's interested should be tuning in tomorrow, because that's how we're going to kick it off and decide exactly where we're going to go next.
I'm going to call timeout. Chris Pearson, you've got a comment, I think.
Yeah, just Mayor, is there going to be public comment tomorrow night, or is it just a work group?
Yeah, we're just doing a work session. So, and it's just to kind of give scope and direction to staff. Of course, if anyone wants to come during the visitor section and make any comments, then absolutely welcome to, no problem there. But we don't have a draft code or anything to kind of comment on. We're just saying where we're going and what are the next steps going to be for the policy. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I know Karen Johnson kind of put together a kind of a draft proposed code. And I was kind of wondering, would that be part of the discussion tomorrow night?
I don't think we're going to start with Karen's drafts, which I think I have on my shelf somewhere. She gave me a copy many years ago. But I mean, some of the points she made about, you know, flexibility for right of way or flexibility for other things in order to save trees, I think that's going to be part of the discussion on how we actually create a better code. So.
Shannon, anything else? We kind of hijacked your report.
That's good. That's good.
And Chris lowered his hand. All right, Chris.
This is Chris. We're generally very happy with what we see at the timber development, and we think Bend really needs the housing, and that's the right place to put it. As you gather, we are concerned that people are going to want to get from Colorado Avenue to Franklin, and how are they going to do it except through our residential streets? And so that's going to be an important issue. We'd love to see the Deschutes River Trail is getting much better through Drake Park, but it still is not there on Riverfront Avenue, which is mostly people walking down the center of the street with balloons on their head. So those are issues that you'll hear from. We have a strong board. They know many of the city staff, so they're involved and things are going well.
Perfect. Thank you. Jim Christo.
Okay, just a couple items. See, at our last board meeting, we were kind of planning for our next annual meeting, and what we're thinking of is maybe some sort of event in the fall and our actual business meeting in the spring, trying to keep them about a half a year apart. That's kind of what we're doing there. We've been spending a fair amount of time working on a gas station appeal and trying to get funding for it. That's always a challenge, trying to go up to LUBA for that review of that decision. And the last item I want to mention is something I mentioned a month ago. I'm still in the process of collecting information where NAs believe that the city may have, erred in applying the law and the code. And so I'm still looking for any NA information that where they think that happened. And I've gotten several so far. So I just put in that plug for that. So, and Lisa, thank you very much for getting Mark on me. That was great because he's got quite a story.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you. That's all.
Okay, then we're going to turn online. And how about John Bennett with Mountain View, please?
Okay, our last board meeting was February 27th. And we had a pretty good guest speaker, a woman named Whitney Bennett from a group called Commute Options, gave a presentation called Oregon Friendly Driver Program. And it's pretty interesting talking about people as, being a driving person, a biking person, or a walking person, and the traffic safety rules involved just to keep all people safe so that everyone gets home safely. So instead of thinking of people as cyclists and drivers and pedestrians, we're all just people using different modes of transportation. So it seems to kind of, connect to what we're talking a lot about with, where we have a desire for people to use automobiles less, and how can people, bike safely and walk to school safely and things of that nature. So I would recommend any other NAs looking into this presentation. Again, Commute Options, the Oregon Friendly Driver Program. And for next month's board meeting, we're also going to have a guest speaker from Bend Urban Gardens, and kind of a little talk about people getting their garden ready for the upcoming spring season. And as part of that, we're going to have a little raffle. We're going to raffle off some seeds and maybe some small gardening tools. Just we're hoping that's like an incentive to get more people to actually show up for our monthly meeting. We were hoping to have a bigger turnout last month, and we only had 1 or 2 people outside of our usual board attendance. So we're hoping to draw some more new people to join our meetings and possibly be interested in joining the board by having interesting guest speakers and little raffles and things of that nature. Yeah, we do have a few board members who are planning on stepping down this summer and fall. So we've been fortunate that we've had a strong board of 7 people for a few years now, but we are going to be taking a dip. So we are actively recruiting like most of the rest of you are. That's about it. Thanks.
Thanks, John. How about Elizabeth?
Oh yeah, Chris raised his hand. I'm not sure.
I can go, but I see that Chris has his hand up.
I'm sorry, that was an error. I meant to lower it. Sorry.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay, we had our monthly board meeting today. We had it in person, and that was pretty exciting. We also had a person attend our board meeting who is really eager to join the board. So that was all very positive. We also settled on a date for our spring general meeting of May 25th. And we're going to aim to do that in person. And there is a lot of reverb coming back to me. Not sure if that's fixable, but I keep hearing, I think, myself coming back. So May 25th, spring general meeting in person. So we're sort of glad we settled on a date, and we'll start planning that in the next weeks. Our green team traditionally begins in April, and so we're working on that street cleanup project again, sort of getting that rolling. And last but maybe not least, the hot topic in our neighborhood has been, of course, the proposed campsite next to Les Schwab. And we appreciate communication from Ann Orend. Our land use chair, Judy Clinton, reached out to get some information that came before the county stepped away, I think that in the scheme of that, we have decided to just hold back and wait and see, since it does seem like different opinions and viewpoints of what the process has been to date. But we would like to, as we move forward, if that camp site is reconsidered, be kept in the loop so that we can do whatever communication is possible from the NA. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Ross.
Yeah, thanks. Let's see, we have our general meeting next week, next Thursday, which is March 23rd. It's at 6 o'clock at the Larkspur Community Center. All of you, of course, are invited to join in as well. We're going to have several speakers, that some of which I covered last week. Tim Brownell, the Deschutes County Department of Solid Waste Director, a couple people from Reed South Development, that's the new little commercial development at Reed and 27th. Todd Dunkelberg, Deschutes Public Library, is going to come and speak. So that'll be good to see as well, since the library location has been determined, I believe, at this point. Chief Krantz is coming. And as well as we just added Mick Gilling. I hope I said that last name right. He's a firefighter paramedic who is coming to speak about the new levy for the fire department. We'll be giving away some silly pines and magnets, as well as some nature pamphlets. Those are promoting kind of pollinator health as well as native plants. I'll be submitting speed radar sign location requests on April 15th. That's when that opens up. We're targeting Broster House, 15th, and Pearl. All three of those we got a lot of complaints about in our survey last fall. And so we'll be requesting those speed radar signs be put in place there. Sounds like they put them in place for several weeks and then take them down, move them on to the next one. So go check out the NSSP update that Michaela sent out, I think last week or the week before, or right after the meeting, has the details on that. And then, GoBond dashboard, we recently found that's at the web address bendoregon.gov/GOBond. You can go there and you can take a look at all the GoBond programs and projects that are going on. You can kind of see how they're progressing, see what's coming down the pike and whatnot, and especially that kind of correlates over to the NSSP project update that we just had. We already covered tree code meeting tomorrow, and then we've got a few members of our neighborhood that are also continuing to fight the gas station along with the SEBNA members. So that's still on quite a few minds these days, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Ross. Let's see, I think we've got 3 more neighborhoods. Go ahead and call on Chris Pearson from Aubrey. Yeah, Chris Pearson from Aubrey Butte.
Great, thanks, Lisa. We met as well last week in person at the Edge Restaurant over at that golf course, and got a new board member, a fellow that was really actively involved in modifying the sale of that, what happened in the sale of that golf course over there at River's Edge, and he's sort of an issue-oriented fellow, so we're real interested in seeing where we go with his interests and what our board can work on through him. And we're meeting tomorrow to start getting our act together on the general meeting. Michaela, I was wondering if it would be possible, our board members were interested in getting information on when the other NAs are meeting and whether they're meeting in person, and if it's possible, some of the issues that they're going to be addressing at their general meeting. I know some folks today have spoken about that, but would it be possible to get sort of a list sent around to everybody saying when the meetings are? And I'm not sure why exactly we want that, but it is wanted if that's possible.
That makes sense. I've had asked for a couple of times, people wanting to make sure that they're not conflicting with other dates. It'll become more the block party trailer that everyone's trying to rent at once. So we're kind of creating a calendar that will go with that so that you can see what other people are doing. But at this point, I can send it to you in an email, at least the ones that I know of. And that's a big caveat because some people, some neighborhoods have planned events and I find out later on. So I know of a few that are coming up in April and May.
Okay, well, we're going to be setting our date at a meeting tomorrow. So maybe if it's possible to get that from you sometime before late tomorrow, at least just the dates of what you know of when folks are going to be having their meetings.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks. We talked briefly about the fire event that I guess Lisa, you're heading up, which is scheduled for April 22nd. It's a public safety, fire safety event over by Oregon State, OSU. The main topic we discussed, and this is something I'm not too personally familiar with, but the fire department levy that's going to be voted on in May. A few members of our group are concerned about that. I think the three issues that they're concerned about is the steep increase in the levy that's previously been in the 20s going up to, I think, in the high 70s cents wise. So quite a large leap. Also interested in why that levy is being voted on in May as opposed to November, when more folks will be more likely to vote on it. And also whether the city is going to have access to those funds, which will be fairly significant if the increase is passed. So we'd be curious to learn more about what's going on with those issues.
Do you want me to give you some quick answers real quick?
I mean, sure.
Well, I mean, just so really briefly, a point I'll make about the increase, and at the end, I'm going to encourage you to bring folks to your meeting to explain it further. But the levy was introduced in 2014 at 20 cents, and it hasn't increased since then. And we've had a 60% increase in calls for service since then. So a lot of the increase above the 20 cents has to do with keeping up with growth and demand for services. And it expires in 2024. So we want to go and get in front of the voters sooner rather than later. If the levy fails, we're going to have to regroup and think about what we need to ask the community for in November. So that's part of the reasoning for the May. And I'm not really sure about your access to funds question, so I'll leave that one for now. But I know, as Ross just said, the fire department folks are happy to come and talk with you directly and have a great conversation and answer any questions that you have. I know they think they reached out to all the NAs, is what the chief told me, but I will extend that again and have him send it out again, and make sure that you all know that they're available for that, because we want to get those questions answered for folks.
If I may pursue that just a little bit further on the point that you said that you're not sure whether the city can access or are not sure about the significance of my question. I think that was really the main issue that some of our board members had, is whether or not that substantial increase that will raise a lot of funds if it's approved, whether the city will have the right to access those funds above and beyond on issues that are fire safety.
Oh, like, can it be used for things other than fire department?
Yes, that's right.
No, it can't. It's only for fire department. It's their budget. So it cannot be taken into to build a street project or anything like that. Sorry, I misunderstood your question there. Gotcha.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. And that was important. And then Michaela, we were just wondering, some of the our secretary treasurer, whatever you want to call her, was interested in what was going on with Survey Planet and Hootsuite. Is there some update on that?
So all of the neighborhoods who are interested in having a Survey Planet account can fill out, it's been a few newsletters now. You can go on there and you can fill that out, and it sends me your information, or at least who your contact will be at your neighborhood. And then what I do is I go on Survey Planet. I send you the activation link direct to that email that's been filled out. Right now we have about, I think 6 neighborhood associations that have signed up for it. So that's where we're at, trying to get the word out for the others. But I know there's some NAs that use different, like their websites or MailChimp to do surveys as well. So it's not the absolute end all be all if there's other solutions for you.
Okay, well, I'll have her contact you then, just to get that started.
Yeah, and that's funded through NLA funds. So that just is another way for, I think, the NLA to get kind of a temperature check on where people are feeling in the community about certain topics. It's something also for your neighborhoods to use for like annual surveys and everything too. So we're not like capping what you can use it for. We just want to keep in mind it's definitely to help with those pulse checks when we do have important topics come up.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you, Lisa.
Great, thank you. I think we have Summer on the line. Summer, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to give a report? Orchard?
Yeah. So briefly, so Orchard District, so my understanding is that this report, I think I always say this, is meant to share what kind of issues the neighborhood association might be facing that might apply to other districts. In this case, in this month, the only thing I want to bring up that we've been looking at is the traffic that has been resulting from the construction projects. And we did last week try to do an informal vote at the board to request that the city work with ODOT to look at the timing on the light at Greenwood and 8th, because there have been some pretty big backlogs there. And we were not able to get participation and get a positive vote on that. So just a heads up that we did make an effort to get a vote passed at the board, and that did not work. But as for other issues, that is all we have.
The report from Century West. We have been busy on land use topics. As I've mentioned previously, we've got several projects that are off of Bachelor View Road. And that whole area, we've got Bachelor View 1, 2, 3, and lodges. So we've got 4 different developments in a very close proximity, and it's causing a lot of heartache for the neighbors. We're going through LUBA appeals and all kinds of hearings. And so it's just exciting times right now. And then we've also had a couple of public meetings or neighborhood meetings. We did one in concert with Southern Crossing for another apartment building. So we've got apartment buildings going up between Century West and Southern Crossing, lots and lots of apartment buildings. As Chris mentioned, we are planning an event on April 22nd. That is a Saturday. And I understand that that's also Earth Day celebrations. So City of Bend's going to be kind of busy, I think. Our event's going to be at OSU Cascades, and we're bringing in all kinds of fire experts to educate people on defensible space, appropriate plantings. I'm going to have to look at the program and see if there might be an opportunity for us to also talk about fire levy, because I'm getting a lot of noise from some of my neighbors around fire levy. And people are kind of looking at this in total, because if we look at library bond, go bond, and fire levy, then at the height of the go bond, it kind of appears that property increases or property tax increases are in the neighborhood of 20 to 25%. And people are like really getting their tummies in a knot over that one, especially when people are mindful of budgeting about a 3% increase per year. So that's what I'm hearing. That's it for Century West. Did we get everyone? I think got everyone, because I can't see everybody online, but I think I'm good.
John Bennett has his hand up.
Okay, thank you. Oh, John.
Yeah, I just had a question, I guess maybe directed to Ross. Ross, do you happen to know that commercial development that's going in on Reed and 27th? I saw a sign that said like Expressway, which is also the name of the gas station down the road at Reed and 15th. Do you know if there's a gas station going in there?
I don't recall it. I'm sorry, John, I don't recall, but I'll find out for you.
The
Yeah, I
design,
mean, I'd be
John, was for a drive-through restaurant. That's,
that expressway is just going to be a restaurant.
yeah, that was when I looked at it. It wasn't super recently, but that's what my understanding was. And so, yeah, but don't know for sure. We can check it though.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, because I assume we would have heard about it with all the talk about the other gas station issue. But when I saw that Expressway brand name that's the same as that other gas station, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be a 3-pump, 6-hose gas station, just like at Reed Market and 15th.
Well, we can check. So it's a good question. Let's find out.
Yeah.
Anything else? No? Okay, we've got a couple of other items. First off, I want to call for any agenda recommendations for the month of April for our meeting. Anyone have any suggestions? See, Chris, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately going to miss that meeting, but I think it would be, curious to hear what the latest is on the homelessness project or houselessness project that the county has pulled out on. Is there anything updated the mayor can say about where things stand on that? Or is that even suitable?
No new updates at this point. Yeah.
But
There,
we could put it on the agenda for next April.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't heard any updates from the county's agenda. I know there is a meeting of the Coordinated Houseless Response Office coming up, I think in the next month or so. And I know I have a meeting with Chair DeBone and the county manager next week, I think. So nothing new at this point, but.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I have a question. I guess a couple of years ago, you and I were working on the education project for land use, and I'm just wondering, is there anything going on in the future of that?
That's a great question. I know that we met with Brenna Visser. I say we, the land use chair networking group, had Brenna come and speak, and she overviewed some of the items that she was going to be focusing on, but I haven't heard much. So
Yeah, I can just say, so Brenda has taken on the land use education project. Right now, she's been doing a lot of really good work to get more of a heads up on certain issues. So like the tree code, CFEC parking. I don't know if maybe you've noticed, but we're trying to get some outreach out there, media releases, some ways of telling people that this is coming before it's here. So that's something that we've been working on. I know Brenna has been looking at trainings. She's managing the website now. So if there's anything that you're interested in doing, a training that's coming up, like Lisa and then Land Use Networking Group had reached out and asked if we could talk to them about appeals. And so she was able to coordinate that. And then she does have her own body of work from when we handed it off about like rechecking the pulse of how people are feeling about land use in the community. I'm not sure where she has decided to go with that, but that is her project now. So.
Okay, so it's not going to be an NLA subcommittee anymore, right?
No, we disbanded that subcommittee because we finished our project. And you might remember that part of that project was at the bequest of the council. So I think that was also part of the process, is waiting to hear what council goals were so that we could also determine what our future is going to be in terms of the projects that we're working on. And as part of that, I think that we've talked about having an NLA retreat, some offsite meeting. And Michaela, any update on that?
Yeah, so right now what we're doing is putting together what we call a request for proposals. So we have several wonderful consultant facilitators around the area. In the budget of the NLA has some funding set aside for those consulting funds. Something that the mayor and the chairs and I have talked about is really going back to the mission, vision, values of the NLA. Now that we've been in existence for 4+ years, almost 6 actually, because we're coming up on 2024. So getting together, reevaluating like who are we as a committee, making sure that we're in line with what council wants us to be doing, with how we initially set out to be operated, and then from there go into more of a work plan. And so if you have seen anything that the Human Rights and Equity Commission has been working on over the last several months, they've been doing a work plan alongside council. So that's something that we'll talk about during those meetings as well. And right now, just trying to find a good facilitator for that and then get it scheduled. We're planning on May and June for those consultation, like facilitation retreat, whatever we end up doing.
Looks like we've got Elizabeth with a question.
I think Ross was ahead of me. So
I'll be quick. So John, if you just Google Reed South, then that will bring up the Compass Commercial webpage. And it basically has a map of a or a rendering, I should say, of everything going in there. And it does include what looks like basically a carbon copy of what's at Regan 15th. So it is a gas station with little deli expressway. It's got the drive-through. It's got Cascade Lakes Brewing, Mediterranean Grill, a dental location, and that's it. There's still lots more going on. So it does look like there's going to be a gas station in there. Of course, I'm not sure if everything's already been approved and whatnot, but that should take care of it.
Thanks. Okay, Elizabeth.
Okay, so I am responding to the question that you asked Lisa about topics for next month's NLA meeting. That was the question, right? So I have two topics that come to the fore. One is, again, staying on top of any tree ordinance that is being developed. And the second one is maybe looking at the appeals process for land use decisions. And I believe that Renee Brooke gave a really good presentation for the Land Use Communication Network Group. And it might be nice to hear that at the NLA meeting.
So Elizabeth, we did tape that, and that is available out there.
Okay, great. Good to know.
Okay. But we'll put that down on the list of suggestions. Any other suggestions for agenda topics? Okay, we've talked about a few of the upcoming meetings. We've got, as mentioned before, the tree ordinance work session and the transportation fee update. That's tomorrow night. And remind me how that works, Michaela. So we have work session first, 5 to 6:30.
Mhm.
Is that right? And for a work session, there's no public comments, right?
Correct.
And so if you're going to make public comments, you have to show up during the regular council meeting, and you can speak during visitor section
Yeah, or email us.
or email.
Yeah.
Okay.
That starts at 7 p.m.
And that starts at 7. Okay, so council has a break. We actually allow them to eat dinner. Can you believe it? I don't know what we were thinking of. And so that takes care of items 8A and B. And then we get into April 5th, City Council work session on the Bend Police Department biannual survey results. That could be kind of useful. That reminds me that previously we've had neighborhood reports on crime activity. And we have been asking for an update, and we've been told that they're too shorthanded. They haven't been able to update those. So I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but it might be something that we can check, because we've used those during our annual meetings as part of our report to our neighborhood. So that could be useful. And then April 19th is when they're going to be talking about the NSSP. So I think that's something that we'll all be very, very interested in. Kind of going back to the fire levy, as far as the fire levy is concerned, it looks like council's done talking about that. It's gone to.
Yes, it's
right?
been placed on the ballot, and city staff actually aren't allowed by state statute to work on it. So you need to talk to counselors, or you need to talk to folks at the fire department who are volunteering their personal time to support it. But like I said, if you haven't had a reach out and an offer to speak from the fire department folks, we can connect you and make sure that they get that opportunity to talk to you and your neighbors. They're eager and happy to do that.
And then my question on it is, so when the city adds the revenue, let's say that the levy is passed, does that give the opportunity, like right now, aren't there funds that are coming out of the general fund for fire?
No, they have the levy right now. And then we, the rural fire department, which also just to mention, we're talking about Bend Fire, and also the rural fire department is also going out for the same levy because they contract with us to cover their area as well. They put up some money from their reserves, and we use some ARPA funds for some bridge funding to get the fire engine and the people to staff it actually in that Pilot Butte station. So that funding will run out and then the levy funding will replace that when that comes into play. And again, the levy doesn't expire till 2024. So this levy will then, the new rate will then kick in after that levy expires in 2024.
Okay. And again, if we want more education on fire levy, best people to talk about the numbers will be people from the fire department.
Yeah, Chief Riley and I think Mitch was
And-
mentioned.
But specific to City of Bend budget numbers. Are those
Yeah.
still the right people?
Yep.
Okay.
And same for all presentations. You can go through me and I can let them know that you're interested in presentation and we'll get the right people to be there for you.
Yep.
Okay. Michaela, did we cover everything?
I think we did.
Really? And our next meeting is when? April?
Oh, thank you. Liaison updates, Neighborhood Association Roundtable. Not sure if they met.
Oh,
left it
I'm
on.
sorry, I forgot. We did not meet. I have no report. We did not
Should
meet
give
in
an ex-
February. There was a different
Okay.
presentation that
Thank you.
was on that night. I can't remember what it was, but several of the members
you
wanted
for
to
your
to
time.
go to that. So, and then
Gosh.
our next meeting is the second Tuesday, which is April 11th. Here, once again, at 4:30, our new meeting time at 4:30.
Sorry to interrupt. Elizabeth has her hand raised.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what is the deadline for an email submission to be included in tomorrow night's meeting?
You can send it anytime.
Up until,
We don't have like comments in the record or anything. You can email
okay,
anytime. So email whenever you are able if you have comments for our tree code or anything else.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and council all is great so that we all see it.
And so for
Yeah.
tomorrow night, you guys are talking about creating this houseless fund. And
No,
is that-
we're not. Well, we're not creating any new monies. We're basically reorganizing the budget
Okay.
so that we can have like a better, simpler way to understand where the spending and money is coming from for those operations. Yeah, that's one of our items tomorrow.
Okay. Great. Anything else? For the good of the order? With that,